Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Late night here on Monday as we're getting ahead of Tuesday's 7-game slate in the NBA, coming off a 3-2 night plus 0.2 units. I'll still say the heater continues as long as you're winning plus money each and every night. You're in a good spot. Obviously, you're still up about 10.1 units now over the last 8 days, but make sure to go ahead and like and subscribe to that page if you would, as I jump right into this slate with you guys. If you are liking what you're getting here, we're bringing you the same thing every night the night before games, giving you a video with projections. If I have best bets in them, which I have one in this, giving you that. Definitely throwing the leans your way as well. And then on the day of games, which will be tomorrow on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, dropping a video with best bets in it, as well as mostly player props, to be honest with you, as that is what our bread and butter is this year, up about 31 units on the Playa Props alone right now. So feeling really good about those, but let's jump into this 7-game slate. I show you these back-to-back things because they matter for matchups, as well as like obviously who's in and out of lineups. Sometimes guys sit on the front or back end of these things. So on the back end here, after playing a game on Monday, Brooklyn and Dallas both played on Monday. Brooklyn lost, as did Dallas. Brooklyn lost to the Warriors. Dallas lost to those 76ers, and now they face each other in Brooklyn here on Tuesday night. And then Miami and Orlando, the battle for Florida there, they're taking on each other here on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, Miami will also be taking on San Antonio, the Spurs at home. So a couple back-to-back home games for them. But let's get right into the first game I'm looking at here, and I just wanted to get a couple things in front of you for this game. Not much that I like yet. I haven't put a bet down for this game, but it's -4.5 for the T-Wolves, +5.5 for the Bulls, with a 217.5 total. And I show you there at the bottom the line movement, as this did open in favor of the T-Wolves a bit higher, and now they are at -4.5 instead of -6.5. And the open, the total there did open at 216.5 and just jumped up a smidge to 217.5 from 216. Might go up a bit more as well. I prefer an over in this game with the way that Minnesota plays on the road, and the way that, honestly, if the Bulls don't have Alex Caruso, which you can see there, big problem on defense for them. He will be the dude who is tasked with stopping Ant, or at least slowing down Anthony Edwards if he can. And I just don't really believe that there's anybody else that's super up to the task, if we're being completely honest. We're probably going to see a lot more Ayo Dosunmu if Caruso can't play. So to be honest, if we do see that, that does mean less offense for this Bulls team, although Dosunmu's been going to the basket pretty well for this team lately, and he will be getting a lot more minutes regardless because of the fact that Zach LaVine is out now for the season. As you can see, that's the last time I'll put Zach LaVine out. Hopefully you'll just be able to remember that he will be out for the foreseeable future for this rest of this season. So nothing that I really like here. No rotation players. That should say no rotation players. Obviously English is not my strong suit right there on that graphic, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about a potential over in this one, unless we do have Caruso out, which sounds weird to say, but Caruso is just so much better on offense than Dosunmu, and Dosunmu is good enough at defense to at least get in there and play his part. But let's move on to the second game that I'm looking at here, because this one's really interesting, which is the Bucks and the Suns. And it's mostly interesting because we don't know if Dame Lillard and Brook Lopez are playing for the Bucks. I would expect Dame to play, but as we all saw if you were watching the video yesterday, where I projected that Luka wouldn't play because he said he heard a pop in his ankle, and then he did play. I'm not going to try and get ahead of this stuff with Dame playing or not playing. So I do think he will play, but I don't want to bet on anything just yet. In the event that he doesn't, it could impact some things. Brook Lopez is questionable as well, and he had some personal matters that he was dealing with on the other night when they played the back-to-back in Utah a couple of nights ago. He missed that game for personal reasons, not injury reasons. So I'm not sure that he'll be back as this road trip continues for the Bucks. My guess would be that Brook Lopez doesn't play tomorrow in this one. For the Suns, they're not missing anybody, but this did climb up a bit in favor of the Suns, and that's where I would lean as well, as the Suns come back home after their long road trip that they performed very well on, and they're healthy now. They've got all three of their big three in. Yusuf Nurkic is in. Grayson Allen revenge game. I say that in jest because he used to play for the Bucks, and he's not exactly a star, so I don't really care about this revenge stuff with him. But he will be in there as well for the Suns. So they're going to have their full rotation, and they are top 3 in the West when they have that. So I would stay away from feeling too good about the Bucks in this one, to be honest. But I am also going to be looking at Giannis assists, and that's something that I'll hopefully be able to talk about in tomorrow's video. It's currently at 6.5 because we just saw him get 10 dimes, so the value is kind of fading from it. I wish it was at 5.5 and then I would hit it, but it's at 6.5. So I'm going to see what it looks like tomorrow morning with the juice. If people are betting an under on that, which I don't know why you would, to be honest with you, like Giannis has been getting dimes all over the place, and if Brook Lopez is not in there, kind of opens up things a bit more for Giannis to get even more assists. He does have a decent amount going over the 6.5 number in 3 of the last 4 he's played without Brook Lopez. So, but I don't have a bet just yet for that game. What I do have a bet for is this game, and I just want to talk about why that is. First, and it is heavily predicated on these injuries that you see here for the Rockets and Pacers. So for the Rockets, Fred VanVleet is out. Wonder how much he's been dealing with an injury in general over the course of the last couple of weeks, as his shooting has been abysmal. And now he sits out this game. Tari Eason continues to miss time. He's missed a bunch of time already this whole season, and he's going to be out in this one again. Tyrese Halliburton, this is the interesting part about this one too, is that he is questionable. Jalen Smith as well, but Tyrese Halliburton he's likely going to play. He's been on a minutes restriction for the last 3 games that he's played. They won 2 of them, they lost 2 of those games. The only win that they had was against the Charlotte Hornets, where they blew them out of the water and actually almost let them come back. But the minutes restriction has started to seem like it's weighing on the team. I'm not going to lie. You've seen a lot of reports come out over the past couple of days of players who are frustrated. Media have sort of written, well, let's call them fan media, have written some things that seem to indicate that they're frustrated that Tyrese Halliburton is playing the beginning of games on his minutes restriction, but they're not saving any of those minutes that he's allowed to play for the fourth quarter. So they've ended up blowing leads in the last 2 games they played, to the Kings and to the Knicks. Mostly the Knicks, where they were up by like 17 points in the second half, and then to the Kings, they also had a lead in the second quarter and really just couldn't continue to hang with them towards the end of the game there. We'll see if he's still on that. Everything indicates he's still on the minutes restrictions. So I don't love -7.5 for the Pacers, but with Fred out and with the Rockets playing as poorly as they have been, especially on the road, it's scary to take them. What's not scary is to take Alperen Şengün to get over 5.5 assists in this one, -130 on FanDuel. So we're looking at Şengün's over 5.5 assists, -130. Let's get a full unit. And to be honest, I am betting this tonight before because I think that it might go up to 6.5. The way that these books have this juice way down to the over, meaning when I say juiced down, I mean that there is no good juice for betting on this. And the squeeze is really the saying that we're talking about here, right? Like the juice would be what you get out of the squeeze. And the squeeze is to play the bet here of over 5.5 assists. The juice is you get -130 back on your money, meaning you bet one unit, you're basically getting like $75, $78 back, or on your money, 75% back on your money there. So yeah, if you bet $100, it's like $75 back on your money. So it's not a great bet. That's what we mean by the -130 here. A lot of you probably know that. But because of that, what will usually happen, that'll tip over, right? And turn into 6.5 assists if you want to bet it. And you'll get better odds. It'll be probably closer to even money or so, or even better, plus odds if it goes to 6.5. But right now it's at 5.5. I know that I'm eating the juice, as we say, but I'm happy to do that. I'll go ahead and drink it and just take the 5.5 assists, because this is a good spot for him to get 6 assists. And I would say that 6.5 is a much more accurate line for Şengün for this game. So I'm getting out on the early number here is what I'm playing. With no Fred VanVleet, last game he had 13 potential assists and 10 total assists, and he's only played 2 this year without him. The other game was against Denver, and he had 4 assists in that game, and they did a pretty good job defending him as he and Jokic kind of went up against each other. But the Indy is a different beast here. The Pacers are allowing the 5th most assists per game to centers. Şengün is going to live wherever he wants to, mostly out on the perimeter, I would imagine, facilitating without Fred VanVleet. I don't really think you want Jalen Green running this offense, and I really don't think you want Dillon Brooks to have the ball in his hands too often with the need to make plays. So that does put the ball directly into point center Alperen Şengün's hands. He's gone over this in 6 of his last 10, and that's with everybody playing. And the 4 unders were against 4 really, really good teams at defending centers, with the Knicks, Brooklyn, and Nick Claxton, and then Joe Val in New Orleans. And obviously Minnesota is the best team at limiting centers to pretty much everything. So the fact that he went under in those doesn't really bother me. The potential assists continue to be there, and I put him squarely at point center with the other options that Ime Udoka has. Like when Fred VanVleet is in there, 5.5 assists is probably about accurate of a line for Alperen Şengün. When Fred VanVleet is not in there, and I know we've only seen 1 game without him, which helps me because I'm looking at stuff a little bit more deeply than just does he or does he not do this when this guy does or does not play, right? There could be a lot of reasons that the last time Fred VanVleet didn't play, Şengün went over. It could have been that they played a team that sucked. It could have been that there was another guy injured as well. It could have been that his matchup was like opportune for him to go ahead and get dimes, right? Whatever the reasons were, like we don't have them yet, right? So we don't have too many examples of him playing without Fred VanVleet. What I know is that when Fred VanVleet's not in there, Ime Udoka does not want anybody else handling the ball besides this man. You'll see some Jalen Green stuff in there as well, but that's because you can't keep the ball out of Jalen Green's hands. And if I had to guess, Ime Udoka would love to not have Jalen Green on his team and bring in somebody else that he trusts a bit more. So with all that said, we're going with Şengün over on the assists here and moving on to this next game where I've got a bunch more stuff here for the Magic and Heat than I did the other two, to be honest. No rotation players are injured for the Magic, and Duncan Robinson remains questionable for the Heat. No real indication as to whether he's going to play or not on my part yet. But the recent matchup stuff here, I just put that on the same slide. We got the Miami Heat did win 2 of 3 this year against them, but it's really just about how slow and choppy and disgusting these two teams play. Jimmy Butler did miss 2 of the 3 games they played this season. So it's, whatever you want to glean from that, like Jimmy's been weird, man. I don't know what to make of him as of late. I like his points are pretty low, and it seems like he should be able to do that against a game that you would think that he would care. He has gone over versus the Magic a bunch. He's not a great matchup for anybody, even for like Paolo, if they want to put him on him. But either way, more importantly for this one, it's tough to take an over of any kind on anybody, isn't it? Like I'm looking at Terry Rozier and I'm looking at Jimmy Butler, and I'll show you on the next slide a little bit more of why I would look at them right now. But 212.5, man. Well, and I'm talking about taking overs on 2 guys point props there. That's kind of tough with an 89 pace. Like these teams are using all of the shot clock. There are no fast break points coming from either of these squads, even when they play each other. So, I mean, they both defend really well down low. We know all that, but let's take a look at these key matchups and how these guys compare to each other. The rim frequency is the first thing I'm looking at here for the Magic. They're first in how much they're going to the rim. And the Heat have been surprisingly bad at defending the rim. To be honest, Rasheed Wallace said this not that long ago, and I kind of believe what he was saying. He said that Bam needs a center alongside him. All these other dudes are like, he's given up, like 50 pounds and 4 inches to most centers that he's going up against. And I would agree with that. Like Bam, as good as he is at everything he does, shouldn't be forced to have to guard guys like Jokic in the paint, right? So the rim defense field goal percentage, right? The defensive field goal percentage when guys are attacking the Miami Heat rim, pretty bad. That's the whole season. That's not even as of late. That's the entirety of the season. They've actually gotten a little bit better, but the fact that they still struggle there is something we're going to want to watch. Points off of turnovers, that should say points off turnovers for the Magic is their second, and the opponent points off turnovers for the Heat, they're 17th in limiting them. So if you get turnovers off them and get out into transition, you're in a good spot. We know the Magic aren't going to really run too often, but they are getting points off of turnovers and then going and getting quick, pretty easy buckets off of that. A lot of those buckets are in the paint. As you see, they're both 8th. So I'm looking at who's going to win that battle. With Wendell Carter Jr. back in there instead of Goga Bitadze, the Magic have actually been much worse at defense down low. So if they're going to struggle the way they have more than they have on the season in the last 5 to 10 games, the Heat might be in for attacking the rim. That's why I like Jimmy Butler as well, and I'm looking at his points so highly, is because the 18.5 is kind of low for Jimmy. He does this all the time, and he has done it against the Magic over the course of the last 4. He's gone over that number 3 times. And like you can see at the bottom there, both the rim defensive field goal percentage for the Magic is second to last in the last 5 games. That's what I'm saying. Since Wendell Carter Jr. came back in the lineup to own that center spot, he's not nearly as good as Goga Bitadze is. However, the Heat aren't going to the rim. When they do go to the rim, they score at the 5th highest with the 5th best field goal percentage at the rim. They just take the fewest shots at the rim. So I'm not, and that's over the last 10, but that is indicative of how they've been all season. So I'm not sure what to do with them there. If anybody was going to take on the task of attacking the rim against the Magic, I would take Jimmy Butler to do it. That's why I'm still looking at his 18.5 points so closely, and I might have that in a bet for you guys in the video tomorrow morning. Quick reminder to subscribe to that page if you would, so you can check that out. Turn on those notifications. Like the video as well. Jump in the comments. I still owe a number of you some responses to comments you made in the videos from yesterday. Promise I will get to those as soon as I can. Hopefully you're checking back in on those. All right, last game that I'm looking at here, 4th game, or this is the 5th game of the 7 games that I'm looking at. I didn't look at the Knicks and Grizzlies, and the other one was the Mavericks and the Nets, with not sure who's going to play in those games. So stayed away from talking about those just yet. But this is the final game I'm looking at with some more key matchups that we have in this one. The Thunder -2.5, the Jazz +3.5. The injuries are obviously much more on the Thunder side here with Isaiah Joe out. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, is questionable. He's missed 3 or 4 games now. Jalen Williams, J-Will, has missed 1 game, 2 games now. And then Kayson Wallace just picked up this injury. He doesn't seem like he'll play, but we're not positive yet. As far as the key matchups here, the Thunder, points off turnover, something you want to look at. They are third. Opponent points off turnovers for the Jazz there, not very good, right? So we know that the Thunder are going to play that high-pressure defense and look to get the ball out of your hands on the perimeter so they can just get it and go. Kason Wallace is a huge reason that they are so good at points off of turnovers this season, and he's not in. J-Dub, Jalen Williams, without a Y, is also a big reason for all of those points off of turnovers. So if both of those guys aren't in there, it might be a better case for the Jazz to be able to limit those and stay ahead of that. Above the break threes, that's going to be a problem for the Jazz because they give up, that should say opponent above the break three-pointer. My apologies again, but they're 21st. The Thunder are first. That's going to be a problem if the Jazz don't continue to play that kind of defense up top. Like Colin Sexton has gotten a lot better. They've been a bit better in the last 5 games above the break from the three, but Jordan Clarkson, not the guy to be defending that, obviously. Chris Dunn, also a really good defender, but we've seen he and Colin Sexton split minutes a lot with Clarkson and Keontae George. Will Hardy will just go with whomever the hot hand is up top. And when it is guys like Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson, they're liable to give up a lot more threes above the break and just buckets in general from that part of the floor where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is always operating. Opponent second chance points. We know how bad the Thunder are at rebounding, defensive rebounding especially, as they give up the second most second chance points to their opponent. And that should just say second chance points. Apologies for the Jazz. They are first in second chance points. So basically the worst team at limiting second chance points versus the best team at scoring second chance points for the Jazz. Another good reason that the Jazz might be a better matchup. This line, however, keeps climbing up, right? Because the Thunder are the Thunder and the Jazz are still the Jazz to most people. But what we're not taking into consideration here is like how much the Jazz are going to dominate the glass. Everybody's healthy down low. Will Hardy can play Walker Kessler, Markkanen. John Collins has been doing excellent work down low. Probably going to look at a John Collins rebound prop. That's still coming out right now for this game, as there are those injuries for the Thunder. And I know the books want to know if Jalen Williams is going to be playing in this game, because if he is, that impacts a ton of stuff before they just start slanging props out to us, right? The last thing there is the fast break points, because if the Jazz don't get back on defense, I do like an over in this game because they don't get back on defense and they are Swiss cheese on defense. And they would have continued to be Swiss cheese on defense if the Bucks weren't so tired after their last back-to-back that they played against them after a big win against Dallas, right? So like the Jazz, I believe in them a lot more than I think people are starting to think they're going to start sliding. This went from 1.5 point spread to a 3.5 point spread. If it gets up to 4.5, 5, then we start talking about a good number to take the Jazz at. And I would definitely start looking at them at 5, 5.5 if it reaches that. The over at 242.5, I believe, has been bet down a point or two, but it's still going to hover right around this number, I believe. And once again, I prefer an over, even with the way the Thunder have been going under. I guess I should slow my roll there because I need to know if J-Dub is playing. If Jalen Williams is not playing for the Thunder, I continue to not like overs for them, to be honest. Like even if it is the Jazz at home. Now, most of these numbers indicate Shai's going to have his kind of success above the break. They're going to give up a ton of second chance points to the Jazz, and so we should see a ton of points. So my initial lean is over. If J-Dub is in there, Jalen Williams, I love an over, and that'll probably be there in the best bets tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. And that is all the time that I have for you guys in this one. Appreciate all the new followers. We are close to 3K. I believe we should get there by tomorrow after this video. So continue to follow along if you would. Subscribe to that page. Jump in the comments. I'm going to get back to you guys on all the questions I have missed from the last couple days. Apologies for the delay there. Obviously super busy. Also had a really fun episode where I put a podcast out, long form, about NBA futures bets. It's a little bit more evergreen, so I figured if it's about 40 minutes or so and you guys have some downtime, it's more of a listen, audio, if you will, but we are on video here on YouTube, so check that one out if you want to get some good NBA futures talk and hear about some of the bets that Kareem, Pro Sports Better, and Eddie Walls of Right Angle Sports, he also helped us put together some futures plays that I know all three of us are going to be making as we help each other out with those. So appreciate y'all as always, and until I see you next, happy betting.